It's the Charlie Bahama Show. Yeah.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Charlie Bahama Show. I am your boy, Charlie Bahama, and man, do we have a fantastic show for you today. It's so exciting. I have a trifecta, okay? I have the legendary Bahamian basketball player, Mychal Thompson, in the house, okay? Everybody knows him from 2 Laker championships. Not only that, I have his brother, Andy Thompson, in the house, okay? He is one of the executive producers of that fantastic documentary series that they aired last year, The Last Dance with Michael Jordan. And then we have Klay Thompson in the house. And you know, he's got 3 championships. So this is just, oh, thank you, Chadwick.
As you wish, it's David.
Oh, thank you, Chadwick. And man, we have Klay Thompson, but the 3 of them together all on one show, okay? So you guys want to come on back, the Charlie Bahama Show. Hey, welcome back to the Charlie Bahama Show. And as I promised, we have the honor of the Thompson family in the house. All right, we got Andy Thompson, we got Mychal Thompson, and we got Klay Thompson in the house. And even though I'm not a Thompson, I'm a Smith, but we are related from way back, from the Fountains and the Smiths from way back. But man, it's so good to have the 3 of you in the house. I mean, this is, generations sitting here in front of us today, and we're so happy that you're here.
But Charlie, I got to interrupt you for a quick second because Julie needs to remind us. We should have had my other son Mychal here because Mychal's Bahamian.
Yeah,
and he actually going to play for the Bahamas in Puerto Rico in next week. You know that? See, so we missed out not having Mychal here with us.
Oh man, where is he now? Practicing?
He's back. He's back up in the Bay. He's coming back here tomorrow. But he's going to fly down next week to join the team in Puerto Rico.
Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Klay, I know you got to head off because you got to get into go into the arena. But what do you love about the Bahamas? And when you get to go back, like what do you know or remember about the Bahamas at all?
That's a good question, Charlie. I mean, some of my earliest memories of basketball take place in Nassau. Just going to Grandpa T and Grandma T's house and the little concrete court he built for obviously his kids that turned into the grandkids' playground. And there wasn't really a net or a great backboard, but it was 10 feet high. And it was always fun to go hoop down at the island because it was so different from Oregon with the humidity and the air is so different. So you feel so good when you're outside and you're loose. And then just being a young kid going to Jeff Rogers camp, seeing the celebrity game, seeing the young Bahamian men play against pros like Brian McKnight, Travis Knight, Muggsy Bogues, Byron Scott. So it would be fun to there was always good competition too. And it was at, the little church gym or at Sir Isaac's gym. And I just remember being a really little kid and always gravitating to the court, whether that was at my grandparents' house or at Jeff Rogers camp. And I have so many great memories of just growing up when we would go to the Bahamas to see the family and playing with my cousins, talking to the locals about when Andy and my dad grew up, and talking to my cousins Ryan and Chris about the church league. And it was just a lot of fun. I have great stories from it.
Yeah. I know. I mean, and that's probably Mychal and Andy, the both of you, because you've succeeded, the both of you, in your chosen fields as well. The Bahamas and your parents. I mean, that's a foundation too. Really nurtures Bahamians around the world. I mean, there's something about the Bahamas. We are a small island, but man, it's like we instill professionalism, we instill drive. Like we might not have everything, like Klay was saying, you got this rim without a backboard or whatever, but it almost makes you better because you got to play better with what you got. So Andy, tell me, like what about the Bahamas like you remember growing up?
Man, I don't have enough time to tell you what I remember. I mean, there's so many things.
Okay, then the one good thing,
Well, of course, it's the food. Like you said, there's something about Bahamians, right? The athletes that come out of the Bahamas, whether they're sprinters, boxers, basketball players, baseball players, there's something about Bahamians in that tiny little nation of 350, 400,000 people that have become great athletes in spite of the lack of facilities, the lack of training, the lack of nutrition sometimes. But for whatever reason, like my wife's family, they're right now living in Colorado. And I think in the history of all the NBA players that have come out of Colorado, there's only been two. And Colorado's got what, 25 million people in the state? I'm guessing, I don't know, millions.
Probably like 10.
10 million people. But for some reason, we've had about 10 NBA players come out of a little island in the Bahamas. And that's amazing. So I think it's got to be something in the water or something in the food. Maybe it's a conch.
Yeah, it could be the conch. Could be the conch. And Mychal, I mean, you were like the one that Bahamians just looked up to. I mean, when you stepped on and you know, I think you started at the Portland, right? In terms of the NBA?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you did that, I mean, Bahamians was so proud. I know it must be a pressure for you also because, you know, as I was saying to you before, and like with Klay, no matter, you know, his mom is American and everything, but Bahamians will own you. So you a Bahamian, Klay, no matter what you, you know, it doesn't matter if your mom was like Russian or from Mars, you still Bahamian, you know what I mean? So it must have been pressure for you too also, Mychal, you know, knowing that you got the country, you know, sort of watching you on your shoulder. How was it, you know, getting into the NBA as a Bahamian?
I was very proud of it, obviously, to be the first one to make it from the Bahamas. And yeah, there is a lot of pressure on your understanding that you are representing a country, you know, because Americans have so many players to choose from, but from the Bahamas, I was the only one, even though guys came before me, Elisha McSweeney, Sterling Quant, Peter Jilkin, guys like that who had a chance to make it in the NBA, but for some reason didn't stick. But for some reason, God blessed me to be the chosen one to do it. And you're right. We don't have the means of communication back then like we have today with the cell phones and the social media. So you'd have to actually pick up a landline and call people to find out what was going on and how people were following my career and supporting me back in the Bahamas, back in the islands. And my father would obviously, being the great communicator that he was, as Andy and Klay knows, and everybody who knew my father knew how well he could speak and present himself, he would definitely inform me how much support I was getting, how much interest I was getting from my fellow citizens. And he would let me know that everybody back there is pulling for me, watching for me, and supporting me. And that definitely made me feel special and made me realize that, yeah, I do have a big responsibility on my shoulders. I'm not only representing myself and my family, but and of course the Portland Trailblazers, but I'm representing a country also. And you know, everybody who leaves the Bahamas and gets to go overseas and perform at, whether they're working in a private business or working in some other form of entertainment, in movies or singing, whatever career they have, you realize there are people back home watching how you conduct yourself. And so that makes you stay on the straight and narrow. And I appreciated that and respected that.
Yeah. Well, we're going to go to our first break, and then when we come back, we'll talk to you, Andy, about the amazing documentary that sort of took over 2020. I mean, you know, and you just got an Emmy for it. So we'll come right back on the Charlie Bahama Show with the Thompson family. The Charlie Bahama Show. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back to the Charlie Bahama Show, and we are back here with Andy, Klay, and Mychal Thompson, sports figures extraordinaire, and in all aspects of sports. And Andy, so The Last Dance, man, that just was the biggest thing, other than maybe Tiger King of 2020. How was it to be the executive producer, one of the executive producers behind that, and how did this come about?
Man, this was a 22-year journey. It started in 1997, actually. After the Bulls won their 5th championship, I had spent a lot of time with Michael Jordan. And during that time, I always felt we never really showed what it was like to be him on and off the court, because he was a satellite and there were so many people orbiting him. And this world around him was just incredibly chaotic and wild and fun. And I always felt we missed the opportunity. And then when they decided to come back for the 6th and final championship, I finally had a chance to pitch this idea to Adam Silver, who was the president of NBA Entertainment at that time. Adam loved the idea. he had a connection with the Bulls. He talked about if we can do this, yeah, no, let's take the cameras, dust them off, and follow them and see what happens. Nobody knew what was going to happen, but we just wanted to document what was potentially going to be his final year in the NBA. And once we did it, and once he won in such a dramatic way, we wanted to get the film out pretty quickly. But somehow, fate intervened. It never really got made, thank goodness. And over the years, they had a couple of times it started and stopped for various reasons. But you know what? Like I said, fate is partly a lot of this too, because God had a bigger plan, right? He knew that 21 years later, there would be this pandemic. And in the middle of this pandemic, we were right at the point where we were almost finished. And ESPN decided, let's move the production time up and bring this out during the pandemic, which was the perfect time and the perfect opportunity. Everybody's eyes were locked onto their TVs. They had nowhere to go. And this was the perfect vehicle to bring some relief and a little bit of, I guess, fun and entertainment to the world of basketball and to the world at large. And here we are. It turned out to be one of the greatest successes in ESPN and sports history.
Yeah, and you got an Emmy for it, so that's, yep, there it is. Fantastic. So between you, you got 2 Emmys. Mychal has 2 championships, and Klay, you have 3 championships.
3 championships, and luckily for me, 2 gold medals with Team.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. The Olympics. Wow. So how was it, Klay, for you even to watch this film? Because you're younger, so obviously you know Mychal Jordan, but you maybe didn't get to see all that that had happened way back then. How was it to watch your uncle's film?
Oh, it was amazing. It was so much fun. It's cool to always talk to Andy about his job, because as a player, we don't see his perspective too often. And for him to be able to work with the greatest ever played, from LeBron, Kobe to MJ, and just pick his brain about how they prepared before each night out, knowing that 20,000 came to see them on a routine basis is pretty fun. And it's just fun to watch because it's fun to relate, our run of 5 straight finals to what the Bulls went through, obviously in the 90s, 6 of them. And to see the hysteria they brought with them everywhere they went was really cool. And to see how they took the game so global with, MJ and his brand. And, I was so young when that was all happening. It was kind of before my era, but I remember little bits. I remember when they came to Portland, I was really young. I remember my dad taking us in the back, shaking Mychal Jordan's hand. And that was a huge moment in my life, just because you see this person on TV all the time and you almost don't even believe they're real until you feel how big his hand was and see how, big he was. And to see him have respect for my dad as well made me look at my dad in a whole new different light. It made me think how cool he was, knowing that he knew Mychal Jordan and took the time on his day to catch up with him. And it was really cool to see. I still have that memory. And I appreciate that Bulls team. And it's fun talking to Steve about it, and to talk to Steve as well. Steve Kerr, he's played with so many great players, and now he's coaching. Now for him to be on the other side coaching, me, Steph, KD, Draymond, Andre, it's fun to pick his brain because he knows what it's like when dealing with such superstar talent and egos. So he's the perfect man for the job, really.
Yeah. Well,
the connective tissue with all of this is just so weird. The symmetry between the reason why I got a really good relationship with Mychal Jordan, because Mychal Jordan actually spelled his name Mychal for a couple of days, and then his mom saw it on his notebook and said, "What are you doing spelling your name with a My?" And he says, "Because I love Mychal Thompson and the way he plays, and he wore these puka shell beads around his neck." It was like, I couldn't believe when he told me this story 25 years ago that he had so much respect for my dad that he actually wrote his name like him. Yeah. And so that's why we actually hit it off in our relationship, because of his respect for Mychal.
To Mychal. Hey, that's funny. Clay's like, hey, Mychal, like your kids always like, that's just my dad. But then when somebody else says, whoa, they're cool, Clay's like, oh, my dad is cool. Hey, but right now, Mychal Jordan's family, like Mychal Jordan's like, look, I know Mychal Thompson. And they're like, oh, my dad's cool too,
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's why I was so fortunate to play basketball and do what I did. And Klay and Mychal wanted to follow my footsteps, because Charlie And Andy, they knew that they didn't have to listen to me. I had access to people like Clyde Drexler, to Rasheed Wallace, to Magic Johnson, to Kobe Bryant. And I could push Klay and Mychal over to them and say, "Here, you guys talk to Mychal and Klay. They don't need to hear from me. Just listen to what Clyde and Mychal and Kobe and Magic, Byron Scott, guys like that have to say about basketball." So that's what was so fortunate on my end, that they didn't always have to hear it from me. Right. It comes from your father. Sometimes you get tired of hearing from your dad, but they got to hear it from legends. And that's why I was so fortunate to be in this business, so they could pass along the knowledge to Klay and Mychal too.
Yeah, that's true. You never listen to your parents. It's like It's so funny. So, well, we're gonna go for one more break, and then we'll come back to finish out the show with Andy, Klay, and Mychal. Come on back, Charlie Bahama Show. The Charlie Bahama Show will be right back. Hey, welcome back to the Charlie Bahama Show, and I am here with Andy, Mychal, and Klay Thompson in the house on the show, and your different areas too. So when was the last time, actually, with COVID, that everybody was together in one room?
Probably the 2019 NBA Finals. It's been a while.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh, look at them! Look at them kicks.
Yeah, no, and the Bahamas is such a part of our story that I try to pay homage as much as I can. And from here on out in my career, I'll always have a colorway of my own personal shoe to give homage to the motherland. And you see here, you got the beautiful yellow, the light turquoise blue, like the ocean water, the black. And I just love to give love to the roots. So,
wow. What size do you wear?
I'm a 15, nothing crazy.
Man,
yeah.
So I can't even steal them shoes. I could put two of my feet in there.
And as you guys can see what's over my shoulder behind me up there, you see where I never forget where I come from, buddy.
Hey, you making me look bad with this little...
Yeah, man, you got to get a real flag. Get a real flag, Charlie, behind you. What you doing? You teeth that off someone's car.
Oh, man. Hey, but Klay, talking about it, growing up, with a legendary father in basketball, was it something that basketball is something you always wanted to do, or did your dad squash your anthropology dreams?
Nah, I mean, I was definitely I love science. I was a little nerdy kid. I love to play chess, but athletics is something that was always my calling card. I played 3 sports growing up: baseball, football, basketball. But when I got to high school, I just knew it was just the one sport I enjoyed the most. And at the time, my father worked for the Lakers, so I was able to go to games with him, and I just fell in love with watching Kobe, Lamar, Powell. That Lakers team really, when I saw him win 2 championships in my teenage years, that's what I wanted to do. I didn't know it would ever get to this level, but I just knew I wanted to be out on that hardwood. And I had the confidence in myself that I could. I would watch Sasha Vujacic play, and I would tell myself I was better than him as a 17-year-old. So I knew it was in my calling. It just was going to take some time. And that's why, 2020's been rough, That's why I think about Kobe and Gigi every day, because my best basketball memories were around those Laker teams, and my first Laker memory was in 2004 when I was able to go with my dad to Detroit and watch that finals. The Lakers lost, and it was such a hostile crowd. I've never seen anything like it. Detroit fans were something else. And I remember after the game, this is another cool story. I'll never forget this. After game, 14 years old, we're in the team banquet room for dinner, and Kobe has his shades on and his little bucket hat, and he's just by himself. And he comes and sits at our table and starts talking to my dad. And I couldn't believe it, because it was just me, my Uncle John, and my dad. And he didn't want to talk to nobody else. But for some reason, he had enough respect to sit down with my pops and chop up with him after losing the NBA championship. I couldn't believe I was sitting across the table from him. And it was it was just an incredible moment for me as a 14-year-old to see my superhero in the flesh. And I'll never let go of that memory. So I think about him every single day, because I can literally chart my whole life off his career. I remember when he won the dunk contest his rookie year. I remember his last game at Staples. So every time I step on the hardwood, I think of him and Gigi.
Wow. Let me introduce you to your father, Mychal. He's a legend. Everybody, from Kobe to Michael Jordan, they all respect your dad. So and
That they did.
before I get back to your your 2020 and what's happening with you, Mychal, how was it to play on a legendary? You did the Last Dance, Andy, but the Lakers when you were there, that was a legendary team as well. I mean, that was just magic around that. How was that to play with Magic and that group?
It's different, Charlie. Klay experienced this the last several years of how special his team was. His team was a historic team, different from other teams in the league. Even though you are in the NBA, like most of these guys are, like all these guys are, it's special to be in the NBA, whether you're playing for the Orlando Magic, the Minnesota Timberwolves, no matter who you play for, it's special. But there are some things that are different levels as we have in life, right? There's different levels to things. And when you play for franchises like the Celtics and the Lakers in the 80s, you have to realize it's different. It's a different atmosphere, it's a different feel, it's different expectations, because you're expected to win a championship. You are playing with Hall of Famers, legendary players. And so you have to take your performance and your attention to another level, because you're not just expected to be a good team or to get to the playoffs. You are expected to win a championship. Anything less is a failure. Klay understands this because that's what the Warriors were like those last 5 years when they had to me, that's the greatest team I've ever seen, Klay's Warriors team. I always tell him that. I'm not afraid to say it, that I think his team was better than my Showtime team. Now, Magic and Byron and Michael Cooper, they cussed me out. They didn't agree with that. They told me they were going to deport me back to the Bahamas when I said that, but that's how special it is. When you get a chance to play for a historic team, the Bulls teams of the 90s, Klay's teams of the last several years, it really is different. You feel like you are above the rest. You feel like you're a member of the Rolling Stones or the Beatles or something like that. While all these other great rock bands are there, but it's just different when you get to play for a historic team or an historic team, as Klay knows.
Right. Wow. And Klay, how is your physical aspect now? How is that coming along?
It's going well. I'm out the boot and I'm walking. I'm on the mobility work. Obviously, it hurts this year not playing because I was so ready to chase another championship, and it's tough watching my team struggle without me because I know I would help so much. I would vault us right into contention again. But I'm excited for our future prospects. I think we hit a home run drafting James Wiseman. This man is 7 foot with extremely good skills for a 19-year-old. It's crazy because when my dad came to the league, he was 23. Now the NBA's changed so much. We have a one-and-done guy who's 19 and has only got about 20 games under his belt. So James is going to be a work in progress, but he could be one of the greats. I really believe that. And me, Steph, and Draymond look at him like he can extend our championship window a few years. So although it hurts now not to be able to do what I love, I'm planning on fully coming back and playing at a high level for the next 7-8 years because I'm not satisfied with just 3 rings. I want to fill up one hand at least, and I want to have a chance to win a couple more.
Yeah. I remember, Mychal, when your dad used to come over to our house, you gave him one of your rings. I mean, and that's a big ring, boy. He was so proud to wear that ring, at our house. And I was like, man, that thing is huge.
Well, not compared to Klay's rings. My rings are special and they'll always be sentimental to me, but my rings in that era compared to the rings they hand out now, look, my rings look like high school rings compared to what Klay and those guys were rewarded with for winning a championship. But still, those rings are precious and special to me. And yet it made me really, really, it made it extra special to be able to present a ring to my father when I won my first championship.
Before we get out of here, I just want to give thanks to the patriarch, Spurgeon DeWitt Thompson. And none of this would have been possible if he didn't first let Mychal get off the island. If it wasn't also my brother Colin. My brother Colin defended Michael's right to give him a try. Yeah. And I remember going back with Klay like 7 years ago, and he took Klay and Mikey back to the roots and showed them where it all began. Yeah. But it started with my father, and then Mychal doing what he did opened the door for me. And none of this is possible if it wasn't for my dad, DeWitt Thompson.
Yeah.
God bless him.
Yeah, this is amazing. So actually, I'm going to go to one more break, and then we'll come back just to end the show. All right? So we'll be back on the Charlie Bahama Show.
Charlie Bahama Show. Charlie Bahama Show.
Follow Charlie Bahama on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or go to charliebahama.com. Hey, welcome back to the Charlie Bahama Show, and we're going to end it here with the Thompson family, Klay, Andy, and Mychal. So listen, this was such a privilege to have you guys on, and I haven't got to meet Klay in person, so hopefully after this COVID thing is up, we could get to the Bahamas and and link up in the Bahamas. Oh, so before I go, Klay, have you been to any of the other islands or just Nassau?
Yeah, I've been to Exuma, I've been to Freeport. That's it, though. I've only been to those, and Grand Bahama.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to explore the other ones, but I would love to.
Yeah.
The outer islands look so beautiful. And I love the ocean. The ocean is my sanctuary besides the hardwoods. So the Bahamas is a perfect place to escape. It's got the greatest seafood in the world, and the best water in the world.
Yeah. What about you, Andy? And have you or Mychal gone to any of the outer islands?
Yeah, I was in Exuma a couple of times. I do a mission trip there.
Oh, okay.
Old homes and stuff. And I've been to Freeport and
I've been to Eleuthera.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been to several too. I've been to Abaco, of course, Grand Bahama. I've been to Eleuthera. I remember one time we took a trip to Eleuthera with the Globetrotters and with Charles Barkley. And that was funny, man. That was a great time. We went over to Eleuthera for a weekend. And the resort we went to had no TV, fellas. Charlie, Klay, and Andy, they had no TV. So we were up all night playing ping pong, just trying to entertain ourselves on this resort.
Yeah, that's the one good thing. But I'll tell you this, because I go to the outer islands a lot, always through, the family islands. And you don't need TV. It's weird how you don't even think about watching TV over there. It's just so much really cool stuff to do. As Klay said, the water is just amazing. And actually, I did a film there, which you'll see soon, on the swimming pigs in Exuma. It's called Pigs of Paradise. So you'll be able to watch that on Netflix or whatever pretty soon. So I don't have an Emmy yet, Andy, but I'm working at it.
That's
Hey,
fun.
man, yeah, I'm proud of what you're doing, Charlie. You're promoting a lot of Bahamians who need to be promoted, and you're always putting out positive things about a lot of people that have made it. And so I kudos to you, my brother.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for coming on, Klay, Mychal, Andy, and like I said, hopefully this will not be the last time. So Klay, get yourself together. Heal really good. We want to see another, as you say, at least 2 more rings. And then you got to do what Mychal did. Then you could give one to your dad. Since he's bigger than his, you could give one to him. Just so
He's already done that. I got 3 of the rings he's got. Klay is really generous about that. He's really nice.
That's a good boy.
The last thing I'll say is the future of the Bahamas basketball is very bright. Between Buddy, DeAndre, and this young kid from Texas coming up, Kai Jones, we're about to have a good amount of NBA players, and it's pretty incredible. We're such a small island to have even 4 or 5 guys in the league of only 400 players. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Wow.
It is. It really is.
Well, thank you guys so much, and we'll be looking, Klay, watching you, and we'll be watching your films, Andy, and then also Mychal, you're still the voice or one of the voices at the.
Still the radio broadcaster for the Lakers. So I will be getting another ring from the Lakers in June coming up.
Wow.
Wow.
I know Nets are looking pretty good.
Well, you guys take care, and we'll see you soon. All right.
All right, Charlie. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. All right. We'll be right back. More of the Charlie Bahama Show right after this. The Charlie Bahama Show. We'll be right back. Well, that was another fantastic Charlie Bahama Show. I mean, this is so exciting that I had Mychal, Andy, and Klay on the show. I mean, I'm really super excited about that. I haven't actually met Klay before, even though we're family. But, to have the 3 of them together was really special. So, hey, if you want to keep up with the Charlie Bahama Show when we're not on TV, just go to all of our Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter accounts at Charlie Bahama. All right? So until next week, I want you guys out there to, wear your mask, social distance, and wash your hands, and stay safe, all right? Until next week. See ya.
Charlie Bahama Show. Charlie Bahama Show. Charlie Charlie Bahama Show. Charlie Bahama Show. Yeah.